Welcome to the eCommerce Profits Podcast, where we feature top founders and experts in the e-commerce industry and take an in-depth look at the struggles and successes in growing e-commerce brands profitably.
Hey guys, Josh Chin here. I'm the host of the eCommerce Profits Podcast, where we feature top experts and entrepreneurs in the e-commerce industry, and we go behind the scenes of the struggles and successes in growing a brand. Now, this episode is brought to you by Chronos.agency. If you run a direct-to-consumer e-commerce brand that is ready to scale and to double your customer lifetime value through life cycle marketing, Chronos is your company. We've helped hundreds of brands scale profits with email, SMS, and mobile push marketing while getting an average of 3,500% ROI from our efforts. We've worked with brands like Truly Beauty, Elias Skin, Doudi, and many more. Now, the next step is to email us at sales@chronos.agency. Just mention you heard about us through our podcast, or you can go to chronos.agency to learn more. Today's guest is Andy Hooper, and Andy is the CEO of Global E-commerce Experts Limited. The company supports clients from all around the world to expand their businesses into the EU markets, which is really interesting. Lots to dive into. With a sole focus on e-commerce sellers, with a series of services, including VAT compliance, 3PL services, account management, social media product development, and consultancy around expansion of businesses into the elusive market of Europe. So the EU is really interesting because traditionally, especially with US-based e-commerce brands, we're often looking at expansion within the country itself, but when you look beyond across the pond, so to speak, you see a lot more potential that's latent in an environment where perhaps competition isn't as crazy. Andy, you might want to share a little bit more about competition out there. And Andy has been growing organizations in various different capacities and different industries. He's had an amazing, illustrious career in many different types of businesses, which is really interesting. Outside of work, Andy is a keen windsurfer and water sports enthusiast. Andy, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Josh. Thanks for having us. It's great to be here.
My pleasure. And first question for you. Why is it so difficult for businesses to penetrate the EU market, especially coming from other English-speaking countries? What are some of the common blind spots that people have?
I think that the first thing is that people overcomplicate things. So when you're looking to expand into a new market, I mean, Europe has 560 million people. So when you look at the total possible reach, audience, market share, whatever you want to call it, the number of people that you can actually get your products in the hands of is a significant number of people. Far outweigh some of the other markets that sellers actually expand into. But what happens is that when you're not based in that region, you put obstacles in the way as to why it's complicated, why it's difficult, why that you shouldn't do it. And there's a lot of reasons why you shouldn't do something. And a lot of that is because you perceive where you're currently doing something as easy, or where you're currently doing it makes life a little bit easier. Because if you already, let's say, as you said there, Josh, if you're already selling in the North American market and you don't feel that you've fully penetrated that market yet, and you've still got some expansion to go, you're thinking, well, I need to solve this piece first. But what happens is that, and I'll give you a great example. One of our clients, prior to being one of our clients, I should say, they were selling some amazing products online, electrical products. And what happened was they were selling these great products all in the North American market. They were building this really big brand. They were 9 figures. They were really, really moving fast forwards. And they said to us, we're not sure we want to expand. There's lots of difficulties. I'm not sure we've got the time. I'm not sure this, not sure we've got that. And all they've done is put a lot of hurdles in the way. And the reason they put a lot of hurdles in the way is because, quite honestly, they were more focused on the current market rather than looking at what could happen if somebody else entered the market with their product. But of course, then what happened was the product was being made in China. The factory that was making their product decided that, well, they're not selling it in Europe, we will. And then what happened is they then started selling their product in Europe. And what happened was that product started really selling really, really well, and all of a sudden the brand in the North American market is now losing, 8 figures every year because they hadn't expanded the brand. Now, it depends on what your thought process is as a brand, right? If you want to be able to grow that brand significantly, you need a global brand in today's market. And in order to do that, you need to make sure that someone doesn't take your brand and launch it in Europe instead of you. So I think that a lot of people put hurdles in the way, which is where we come in, obviously, to solve all of those and make that easy. But realistically, it's down to the people who are running that business to decide, do we want our brand to be sold by somebody else in Europe, or do we want to do it? Now, or product. I say brands, there's a whole load of infringements you need to think about there.
Yeah. That's interesting. So you're thinking about expansion not just merely for the sake of expanding revenue. That's a given, but also a form of protection.
Exactly that, and that's where our clients come into 2 categories. They want to grow revenue, definitely.
Yeah.
And typically a epic seller that we work with, we successfully expand brands into Europe. And our target with our clients is get them to 80% of what they're doing in the US market. Most of our sellers sell in America first, then expand into Europe. So our target is to get them to 80% of their US sales. That's our target. So if they're doing 100 million, our target is to get them to 80 million. Now, so 2 reasons to do it. One is to grow revenue. Like if I say to you, well, you're doing 100 million, you want to do 80, most people are going to say, yeah, sure, that sounds like a great idea, right? Even if you're doing 10, do 8. If you're doing, that makes perfect sense. But the other reason people do that is brand protection. Making sure that their brand is protected, the product is protected, and they have the first launch of that product in Europe.
Makes sense. Now, Andy, I love the approach to simplification, and often we find that things are a lot more simple than we make them to be. What is from a layman's perspective, what is the pathway to success in expanding into the EU? And I know that you have a couple of frameworks in with regards to this. For a US brand looking to expand into the EU, what is the typical pathway that one should look at?
Yeah, I think, so we've worked with over 2,000 sellers across all of our different services. So what we've been able to do with that is look at the data points across every section of what we do. So we do logistics, we do compliance, we do account management. The advantage is where you see the data in logistics, whether that's fulfillment or shipping. We see the data in the compliance, whether that's product compliance or whether that's VAT compliance or whether that's recycling compliance and all the other taxes that come into that. And then obviously what people actually sell across different marketplaces. So what that enabled us to do, having worked with thousands of sellers, is really put together a framework that says, well, if you're going to expand into Europe, here's the steps that you need to go through. So let me give you the overall 7 steps that we've got. Now, inside these 7 steps, there's a whole load of others. And we're not going to be able to dive into all of them on one podcast. But if I give you 7 basic steps and a brief synopsis on what each of those are, it will give you a good understanding. So the first thing is market research. Make sure you understand what the market is, where's the best place to sell your product, and your product will sell in that market. All right. The second thing is compliance. Make sure your product's compliant and make sure your business is compliant. Because if you go into and launch into a new market and if one of those isn't right, what'll happen is at some point you'll get closed down, be that by customs or the authorities or trading standards or a marketplace because you're not compliant. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to launch a product, sell thousands of products and get this amazing sales velocity only for you to get shut down and lose all of that. It's just like completely pointless, right? So make sure the compliance of your business and your products is the next step. The next step is marketplace launch. Identify the right marketplace for the right product in the right country. So if you're already selling on Amazon, for example, then actually Europe is great for Amazon. Amazon isn't the biggest across the whole of Europe, but it's a great way to start.
Yeah.
So identify the marketplace that's right for you and your product in order to launch and have a launch strategy. The next thing is warehousing and logistics. You need to be able to ship your products. You need to be able to get customs for your products. You need to be able to store your products and fulfill your products. And you need to accept returns. So you need the whole ability to be able to have some form of logistics network in region. And when we talk about Europe, we're talking about two things. We're talking about the United Kingdom and the European Union. Because since the UK left the European Union due to Brexit, we're no longer part of the Union, but we are still part of Europe. It's a fun fact, if you like, that we're still part of Europe. We haven't gone anywhere. We're still on the same continent.
No way.
You need to get your logistics sorted. And then once you've got those things all sorted, you need to promote your products. If you think you're going to come over and put your products online and they'll just sell, I think those days are long gone. So it's really important that you promote your products and then launch on a website and then scale your business. So the 7 steps: marketplace launch, market research, compliance, marketplace launch, 3PL, logistics, if you like, promote, website, and growth. So they're the 7 steps. And when you're expanding, it doesn't matter actually whether you're expanding to Europe, India, Singapore, Japan, Australia, or the US. You could use this framework, in all fairness, to launch anywhere. Just some of the words and some of the compliance pieces will be different. In the UK, Europe, we have VAT. In some countries, you might have GST or sales tax. But you could use the framework, but we've specified and honed it specifically for Europe.
Why do we start with marketplaces versus launching on your own site immediately? Is there a reason for that?
So the majority of the sellers we work with are already selling on a marketplace and not on their website. The website for them is secondary. The marketplace is the first and foremost. So our 6th step is launching on their own website here in Europe and launching that. Now, for some sellers, actually, marketplace launch on website might be the opposite way round. So, for example, they might be selling on Shopify, WooCommerce, or wherever that might be. So actually, they might launch that piece first and then go on to marketplaces after. So you could alternate and twist those. The reason we have the marketplace first for us is because the majority of our sellers are marketplace sellers first and foremost. But you have to identify as an e-commerce seller that the long-term strategy is always going to be to build your own audience. And therefore, having your own website at whatever stage is a key ingredient to increasing your profit.
Andy, one of the challenges that I foresee in Europe as a whole is beyond EU localization of languages and translation and to some degree cultures. Do you see that playing a big part in the effectiveness of and speed of this expansion process? I.e., is there a revenue upside for me going through the trouble of translating and localizing my website and my products into every single country?
Yeah, it's a great question because I said right at the beginning there's circa 550 million people in Europe. That way outweighs the number of people that are in North America. But at the same token, I also said our target is to get sellers to 80% of their US sales. You can see a disconnect straight away, right? And the reason for that is because of the regional dialects, translations, listings, and everything else that goes into that. So in Europe, there's 28 countries, therefore there's 28 languages. So when you are expanding into Europe, it's important to understand that you will need to translate your products, you will need to translate your listings, you will need to do the SEO in the right language. And that's why the sales aren't as high as what we would estimate in the North American market when it's one language and one country, broadly.
Yeah.
I'd say broadly, so that's where you do need to focus on. What we find is that it's easy for sellers to get to 50% of their US sales. The next 30% is all down to marginal gains. So marginal gains are, you've got an epic listing, it's fully translated in German. The SEO's done in German, the keywords are done in German, and so on. And it's then building the brand out in that local country in order to build and sell those. The opportunities are there without any shadow of a doubt, but people shouldn't go into it thinking it's relatively easy. There is hurdles to go through, which we smash down for our clients.
If a client, well, if a brand isn't working with your business, what do you see being the alternative options, and what do people tend to go towards when it comes to translation specifically and localization?
Yeah, I think that when people they're expanding, what happens is you're going into a complete new continent in most cases. And what you then do is you then think, well, I need let's say I need 10 different services, okay? And they could be across lots of different things. If you think about your business right now, some of those things you're doing in-house, some of those things you're outsourcing. And that could be warehousing, you could be outsourcing, for example, but you could have it in your garage. It could be in your shed, whatever it happens to be. But there are things that you might outsource. But when you're expanding to a new continent, you don't have the resource or the ability to do some of those things yourself. So you therefore start outsourcing pieces. Now, the advantage of working with us is that we put all that under one roof, so you only need one agency. So the first thing is you only need one service provider when you're expanding to Europe, and that's how we make it really simple for our clients. When you look at translation specifically, what you're looking at is, we have a 3-step approach with translations. First one is when you first expand, do it free through Google, all right? You can't do 28 countries, 28 languages, and have speed to market. You will stifle your growth by the inability to be able to get everything perfect, all right?
Yeah.
Now, we've all come across a listing or a listing on an e-commerce platform that doesn't quite translate properly.
It doesn't sound right, yeah.
Yeah, we've all done it.
Yeah.
Now, when you're expanding to Europe, if you're English speaking, then those pieces are going to be relatively straightforward. You can do them in English, no problems at all. Right? But what you want to do is then translate them start off with free Google Translate in all the other countries across Europe that certainly are in your marketplace dialect, right? Straightforward and easy because it's free and it's simple. As soon as you've seen a sale on that product, you then get it translated by a human native tongue translation, right? To get the listing correct. The problem is you don't have enough data to understand what the keywords might be and what the research and the SEO is going to be on that listing in order to take it to the next level. So what you then do is you then basically put a small amount of money to get a native tongue translation. And then as you start to see more sales, you can invest more money in that listing to then start doing the SEO, the keywords in that listing. So it's like a 3-step process. And we work with our clients to enable that to happen. So we're here to successfully expand e-commerce brands into Europe. If I said before you started, you need to do a full translation, SEO, keywords, native tongue, and every listing is going to cost you $250, you'd never expand because you'd have no money to promote your product or have stock.
Yeah.
That's a step in the process, not let's do this first. And that's where we guide our sellers and say, well, look, we're seeing real strong growth in this product range in Germany now. Now we need to do the research properly on getting this listed and do the SEO on it, for the want of a better word.
What I've often seen, Andy, is that sellers end up not translating at all because English being the standard go-to secondary language for most European, if not all European countries, it does, I suppose, affect conversions a little bit, but as a testing phase, not that bad of an option. Do you think that's an okay option to take?
I think that depends on how you're selling. If you've got your own website, I think that's totally fine. No problems at all. If you are on a marketplace, it needs to be in the local language. And that's the difference.
Yeah.
You know, you want to make sure that you're able to, work with the marketplaces. I agree that, when you come to speed to market, you've got the website, actually having it in English is absolutely fine. No problems at all, because most people will pick that up. What's actually more important is having it in the currency for the country. So when you click on that website, if you are based in either the UK, it's in pounds. In Europe, most of Europe is in euros. What you want to be able to do is you want to click on that website and see it in pounds or euros. What you don't want to see is it in dollars, because all of a sudden you think, this is the first thought process is this is coming from the States or China, and it's going to take forever to land here. Now that might not even be the case, but it's about having the thought process, and it's easy to do on websites. Like, it's really straightforward. So that's where we see the difference.
Fantastic. Now, trademarks.
Yeah.
This is an interesting one. Obviously, with Brexit, that changes things a little bit.
Yep.
But also for someone coming in to the EU and UK from the US, how should they think about trademarks with regard to their product and their brand?
So trademarks are the only way you're going to be able to protect your brand. Fact. Since Brexit, you would need a trademark both in the UK and in Europe. That's now a given because of the way that Brexit's happened. So you need two trademarks to sell in the UK, or one in the UK, one in Europe. That increased costs, but the process is broadly similar in both. So it's not. It's one and a bit amounts of work, not two amounts of work, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You're selling on a marketplace, it's absolutely imperative that you do that as quickly as you possibly can in order to protect your brand and to make sure that people can't copycat and everything else. That's a given. Yeah. If you're selling on a website, it's not as important to do it as quick, because quite honestly, people can't copy your website as quickly. But on a marketplace, that happens a lot quicker. We recommend that the people that we see that are winning today are brands. Brands are the ones that are winning, and if you can show a little TM trademark after your name, all of a sudden it gives the brand that much more kudos, because we've all clicked on a Facebook ad, we've all gone to a website, and we've all bought something from a Shopify store or other website platforms are available. Gone onto that, bought something, and it's never arrived. And whether we've spent £5 on that or £50 or £500 is completely irrelevant. People want to see that it's a trademark brand, and buyers are becoming a lot more aware and a lot more focused on what the brand says about them.
That makes sense. Sometimes it's about the perception than anything at all. And Andy, now quick segue here. You've been building businesses and expanding brands into new markets for over 10, 15 years now?
Yep.
What are some of your favorite failures along your journey?
Along my journey or along the sellers' journeys?
Along your journey.
What
are some of your personal favorites?
Okay, I think my number one active learning point, rather than favorite, is that Q4 last year, we've been very fortunate as a business to see significant growth year on year. We've doubled or tripled every year, and that's amazing. And
that's incredible.
Everyone starts a business. You start a business and you hope. Like everyone that puts a business plan together and says, well, this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to do it. No one has an idea how it's going to go, and it's just frigging luck what actually happens. All right, I appreciate you make some of your own luck. Okay, I get some of that.
Yeah.
But, we all go into business, and I've had several of them, where, okay, this is going to be the next big thing, and I'm going to be a millionaire by this. Like, it's a load of nonsense. And, but in this business, we have been very fortunate to have seen significant growth. And I remember when I was much younger, a lot less grey and a lot less wrinkles, that I remember hearing these stories of growth pains. And
growing pains, yeah.
I was like, yeah, all right, whatever. Like, it's just nonsense. So you're gonna have these growing pains. You grow fast. You're gonna come across problems. And I'm like, yeah, what a lovely problem to have. And it wasn't until last year that really hit us. And one, I never wish this on anybody else because growth pains are real and they're a massive problem.
Oh yeah.
And what happened was we've been very fortunate. We've always said to our clients, we'll grow with you. And as an e-commerce service provider, that's difficult. Some of our brands are really growing fast, so we have to keep up with that. And when it comes to warehousing, fulfillment, storage, the downside to that is that our clients continually demand they need more storage. And we'll always find additional facilities and everything else to make that happen. So last year we took on another facility. We took on another 100,000 square foot of storage space, broadly 10,000 square meters, depending on where you are in the world, or depend on how you divvy that up, but give or take. And we moved in September last year. Well, we had to move in because we were out of space where we were, and we've added the facilities on. The problem comes when your systems and processes are great, but they've not been stress tested. So what you have to do, and this is our favourite failure, is that, well, not favourite failure, our biggest learning failure, is that put in a system and process, but you need to put it under stress, and you need to identify at the point before it's breaking. But so you need to have solid measurements in place to identify that, and we didn't. We didn't have a robust enough system to identify when the processes weren't working and find the solution to that quick enough. So let me give you an example of that. We took on more facilities. We said you could send in more products, no problems at all. We've got more storage space. Send in another 1,000 pallets, whatever you need, we'll deal with it. That's amazing. But what we hadn't done, and here's the failing, is that we hadn't identified which of our clients were going to send in more stock. So when you're expecting clients to send in, let's say, 1 container a month, and they then send 20 a week, you can see the problem. So we had a couple of clients that increased what they were doing, but significantly increased what they were doing. So, what we didn't ask our clients for a solid forecast of what was coming. So we're expecting 1 container a week, and we get 20 from 1 client. Bear in mind, we've got 200 clients. You can see where the scale of the problem is going to come. We learn very quickly from that. So if anyone's listening to this and they're growing and scaling a business, 1, make sure you've got a system and process in place, and people can follow it and adhere to it, because it's much easier to put that in place when you're a smaller business than a bigger business. But when you put it in place, make sure you've done some form of stress test to make sure that when the system and process fails, 1, you can identify it early enough and change it quick enough to make sure you don't fail your clients. And we failed our clients, and that's nothing that I haven't admitted to our clients. So because we're very honest about what we do. When we make mistakes or we believe we've got a problem, we hold our hands up and say we're doing everything we can do about it. And as a business owner, the best thing you can do is phone up and speak to the person, the business owner at the other end, and say, look, we've screwed up, we're on this, and you have my word, I'm doing everything in my power to resolve the problem. And that goes a massive way to supporting the clients. Anyway, that was my least favourite, but most learnable outcome.
Sounds painful.
It was.
Sounds like a lot of pain. We're definitely no stranger to growing pains. It's from the outside, kind of looking at it. Oh, you guys are growing. It's great. And you go, yeah, but growing pains, and they're like, yeah, better than the other form of pain, but still pain. People just don't realize that with growth comes a growing level of responsibility and accountability as well to a larger pool of clients that expect a lot more, and it's really difficult to keep that up, and especially when things are breaking.
It's very stressful, you know. You're letting your clients down, you're letting your team down, and you're letting yourself down. And the one thing that I'm not very good at dealing with is letting our clients down and knowing we could have done a better job at that. Because I see that as a complete failure on my behalf to have not dealt with that properly. I just can't fundamentally deal with delivering poor service for our clients. And everyone's under stress then. It's just unnecessary.
Yeah. I hear you, and it's something I can really relate to. Being in the business that we're in, it's service based, it's relationships, right? And it's fragile.
Yep.
When you break trust, it takes way longer to rebuild that trust. So Andy, I love what you've done with, taking charge and taking the responsibility and phoning up clients that are affected and being upfront and saying that, you know what, we screwed up and we're here to fix it, and you have my word and I'm doing everything that I can. I think that means a lot more, because every agency, every business is bound to go through some kind of hardship with their customers and with their clients. And I think what defines the companies and businesses that are successful and that are here to stay are the ones who take charge and take responsibility. So, fantastic story.
Clients respect you for it.
Yeah.
Don't hide it.
And that stays. Those are the moments that define the relationships that you'd have with a client, and it's a test. It ultimately is just a test.
A stressful one at times.
Stressful one, still a test. Andy, when times are tough, or when you're facing problems or challenges that you may not be able to deal with alone, who do you go to? Do you have books that you come back to again, mentors, or anything of that nature?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a few things, I guess. I've got a really good network of business owners around me that I talk with, I see. I go to the gym every day. There's a network of business owners in the gym at 6 o'clock every morning. We talk, we communicate. I was out for dinner for some last night. Sunday mornings we go for, instead of going to the gym, we go for a walk. We go for a 2 or 3 hour walk. 6 o'clock in the morning. We sort of back, and it gives us. So for me, I've got this great network of other business owners I can talk to around me. I think that's the first thing. I'm not big into really networking events, sitting around having around a table having a conversation. It's not really me. I'm much more working with people in small groups and networking in that way. That for me works really, really well. I do listen to and come back to. I do a lot of education. I do some courses. I like to go to events where I'm educating myself to learn in that way. But I have a couple of books that I probably come back to. Coming back to your point there, I've listened to probably 3 or 4 books, I don't know, a dozen times, 10 times, and
Interesting.
depending on what the stress is, depends on
Yeah.
how I come back to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a few books that I tend to come back to, and for those listening, I think they fall into different categories. But there's one, Measure What Matters, which is about objective
Mm-hmm.
key results.
John Doerr.
That's it. Yes,
Yeah.
really, really good, and that's about setting objectives and hitting key results. And for me, that's around them focusing on the systems and processes off the back of that.
Yeah.
I love. There's a customer born every minute, which is about the greatest showman, if you like, for people that haven't heard that, and P.T. Barnum.
Yeah.
And that one is written by Joe something. I can't
Let me
remember that
see.
one. Then there is
Joe Vitale.
Vitali,
Is that
yeah,
the one?
Vitali, yes, that's it.
Very cool.
And then I also have there's Russell Brunson, who runs ClickFunnels. He's got a series of books: .com secrets, expert secrets, traffic secrets, that I find inspiring to listen to. That I always get something additional from every time I listen to, as not necessarily just a recap. I find them all really useful. So yeah, there's a few I go to, and there's probably a handful of others, but that's where
Yeah.
I like to go to.
I love it. Every time I ask this question, the people I interview always have a kind of a set of go-to resources, whether that be books or people that they kind of refer back to again and again, that helps them find new perspective and new solutions to things that they might be working on. What's one thing that you wish younger Andy would know about that you know now? Say 10 years back.
Yeah, educate. My history of education. I went to school, and rightly or wrongly, probably wrongly, I believed that I got to a point where I thought that the teachers were there not because they wanted to inspire people, because they had nothing better to do, and that the education system for me just didn't work, because
Right.
I'm a forward thinker, I'm fast thinking, but I'm not a maths, science, history. Like, history's in the past. I've got no interest in it.
Yeah.
I'm so focused on moving forwards, and yes, I want to see what's happened in history, so I don't want to repeat stuff. But school isn't about that, and I was put off of education by the school system because of my own beliefs, not necessarily because the school failed me, but there was no one inspiring at school, right? And entrepreneurs in schools just don't work, right? We all think we can do a better job than the teachers. Fact. Whether we can, can't, or indifferent doesn't matter, right? And so I was put off by that, and I never started educating myself until much later. So I would go back and say, start educating yourself isn't about reading a novel. It isn't about reading a book. I didn't like reading. It was too time consuming for me. I didn't have time to sit down and read a book. But as soon as someone gave me an audiobook and I started listening to audiobooks, it was like a game changer. Like, and then podcasts. And then, well, what about events? How else can I learn? And I just started listening to all this stuff. And I think one of the ones I come back to, Russell Brunson, that was probably one of the original ones I binged podcast listened to, if you like. And I probably come back to that from a comfort point of view. I guess that's, a child, you're in a child, come back to the comfort thing. Where did you start the journey of really educating yourself, and what does that look like? And I think that's where I'd go to. Educate yourself, find what you're interested in, that you can educate yourself on and learn, and don't be afraid to listen to different things, because it was the point of listening to lots of different things that I found a few people that I resonated with, and they interviewed someone else on their podcast, and I'd listen to that and I'd go, well, that guy was awesome. Let me go and listen to their stuff. And then you go and listen to all their stuff. And then you listen to their podcast and you hear someone else. And every single one of those has given me a different idea or a different inspiration or different thought process or a different whatever. Doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
But it's there not for you to necessarily take everything they say as gospel, but to inspire you to go and listen to something else or think about something in a different way.
It opens up new doors that you may not have had thought about, new perspectives. And
Exactly that.
I can relate to that. That sometimes it's about looking at things in a different way, or having yourself pointed towards a direction that you maybe haven't explored before.
Yes.
Prior to listening to that book.
Exactly that. Everything we've done, I've learned from someone, and then I've gone, oh, that sounds good. What are 3 other people doing that? Go and listen to them, and then go, I like the idea of this one, and this one, and merge it. Because honestly, a lot of these gurus are just spinning off stuff that's been done by other people elsewhere. It's got the loudest voice or the biggest audience, and they're just regurgitating stuff and making it their own framework. That's it.
Right.
So it's about you finding your own framework. Coming back to our 7-step pathway, all of that is completely ours. But the idea of the framework came from educating myself on other people's frameworks. It wasn't that I thought, we need a 7-step process. It was 3 people saying you need a framework, and us going away and building out a framework. There we go.
Makes sense. I love that. I love that story. Andy, for people listening, wanting to learn more about what you do and potentially work with you, where should they go to and how can they connect?
Probably the easiest place is to come to LinkedIn, say hi. That's where you can find me as a person. If you want to learn more about what we do and how we can successfully expand your brand into Europe, then Google Global E-commerce Experts. We're based in the UK. We've got facilities in UK, Germany, Netherlands, London, and New York. So we're not global yet, but we're on our way to that path. You should be able to find us wherever that be social. If you enjoyed what you listened to, you want to hear more, then we've got a podcast, Global E-commerce Expanders. You can go and hear there. If you want to know more about the 7 steps, then all of the information we provide and that we do is free online. You go to YouTube, go to our podcast. We talk to you about how you can do this all yourself. If you've got the time to educate yourself and you don't have the cash, go to our YouTube channel, go to our podcast, consume the content, and go and make your EU expansion a success. If you haven't got the time and you've got a bit of money to invest, come and have a chat and see how we can support you.
I love that. Andy, thank you for coming on the show.
No problem. Thank you very much for having us, Josh.
Thanks for listening to the eCommerce Profits Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get notified of future episodes.